Question 1. Determine which graph shows the relation y equal to x minus 3 and its inverse. To find the original function, we need to at least find 2 points on the original function. So when x equal to 0, we find the original function f of x equal to 0 equal to 0 minus 3, which is negative 3. We can see the point 0, negative 3 is here, but this one, no, it's at negative 4. And this one, no, because the dotted line is for inverse. So B and D are not correct. Now let's look at the inverse function. We know the inverse function. Oh, let's look at the other point where x equal to 3. The f of 0, the original function, when x equal to 3, it will be 3, 0. And the 3, 0 is here. Okay. Now let's look at the inverse function, and we know for x, y in ordered pair, you just swap x and y to find the inverse. And then 0, negative 3 become negative 3, 0. And this 3, 0 becomes 0, 3. Now let's look at the inverse function. Do we have a negative 3, 0 here? Yes, we do. And do we have a 0, 3 here? Yes, we do. Now look at C. Do we have negative 3, 0 here? Yes, we do. But 0, 3, we don't have this point. So C is not correct. The correct answer is A. But I want to confirm my answer is correct. Just by looking at y equal to x, because all inverse function and its original function, they always reflect and symmetric over y equal to x, which means if you fold the paper along with this line, your inverse function and the original function will overlap. Question 2. What is the domain of the following function? For domain, we're looking at left to right for domain. So left, we can see it's negative 5, and right is 5. And left, we can see this is a closed dot. That means we include this point. And this is open dot. We do not include. According to the anchor chart, we can see if we include this point, it will be less than equal to or greater than equal to for inequality notation. And do not include is less than or greater than. So let's look at the answer choices. Question A for for answer choice A, negative 5 is less than or equal to. That's correct. And for 5, it's just less than. That's correct. So the correct answer choice is A. Now, question 3. Determine if the graph and determine if the graph is a function and if its inverse is also a function. For a graph to be a function, first it must pass vertical line test. Now let's see if it passes the vertical line test. We draw a line here, only 1 point touch, which means it is a function. And the question for the second graph, vertical line test. Yes, it is a function. So, for question one, yes, it is a function. Question two, yes, it is a function. Question three, yes, it is a function because only one point passes the vertical line. Question four, yes, it is a function. But now let's look at if the inverse is also a function. Inverse to be a function, the original function must be a one-to-one function, which means the graph must pass both vertical line test and horizontal line test. Now let's look at the first one. Yes, it's one-to-one function because it also passes the horizontal line test. Only one point on the graph touches the horizontal line. The second one, it's not one-to-one because 2 points touches the horizontal line. The third one is not one-to-one because 3 points touches the horizontal line. The fourth one, yes, it's one-to-one because only 1 point touches. Question 4. Which of the following has a domain of x less than and equal to 0? For the first one, we can see the x domain is from left to right. For the first one, we can see it's from 0 to infinity, and we include this point. The second one, yes, it's from 0 to negative infinity, which means in inequality notation, it's x less than or equal to 0. That's what we're looking for. And for C and D, for inequality notation, there will be negative infinity less than x less than infinity. That's not what we are looking for. The correct answer is B. Question 5. Determine if the relation and its inverse are a function. For a relation, for a relation to be a function, x cannot repeat. By looking at the x, doesn't repeat. So the original relation is a function. Now let's look at the y to see if it's a one-to-one function. Because only one-to-one function can have inverse also as a function. So to be a one-to-one function, both x and y should not repeat. But we see negative a repeats. So it's not one-to-one function. And the inverse is not function. So relation is a function, inverse not a function. Correct answer is C. Question 6. The point -9, 2. Find the inverse. So it's simply just switch the position of x and y, swap x and y. So we have D. We just switch the position. Question 7. Which of the following describe the domain and range of the function in the graph? This function, we only see points. I call this a point-only function. For a point-only function, the only notation we can use is set notation. Now look at the answer choice. The only set notation is option C. Now let's look at the points. If there are more than one set notation answer, we need to see the points. The first one is -4. And then that's the domain. The first one is -4. Second one is -2. Always from the least to greatest. Third one 0, 2, 4. See, the domain is correct. Now let's look at the range. The smallest one is -4, -2, 0. Yes, that's correct. Question 8. Which of the following best represent relationship between function and inverse? Again, very easy. Just swap x and y. Do not change any number. Do not change any sign. So the only correct answer is B, because it doesn't change anything. It just swap the position of x and y. Okay, question 9. What is the inverse of the function -4x plus 2 over 5? Always write down 4 steps. The first step is replace fx with y. Y equal to -4x plus 2 divided by 5. And then let's switch x and y. Your x, your y become x, and your x become y. Then step 3, so for y. So based on the anchor chart, we know the first thing we want to get rid of is always the large fraction. We get rid of the large fraction by multiplying both sides by the denominator. So I got 5x equal to 4y plus 2, because the 5 cancels out. And then the second step for solving for y, it'll be -2 on both sides. There I can cancel out the 2. The third step is to leave y alone by dividing -4 on both sides. So now I have this as my answer. But to be a correct answer, we do not want to have negative sign on denominator. So it's very easy. We just change the negative sign on denominator to the top, put it on the top, and we put a parentheses here. And to remove the parentheses, we just change the sign of numbers inside the parentheses. So positive x become -5, positive 5x become -5x, -2 become +2, and then divide by +4. The fourth step to solve for inverse function is to replace y with f -1 of x, which is the inverse function, and it equals to -5x plus 2 over 4. Question 10. If if gx is the inverse of fx, which statement is true? Let's look at A. Domain and range of gx and fx are the same. So this is an example that gx and fx, they're not the same domain and range. Fx has the domain of 0 to infinity and a range of negative infinity to 0. But the gx has domain of 0 to infinity, range negative x. Sorry. The domain for fx is negative infinity to 0. Range is 0 to infinity. For gx, domain is 0 to infinity. Range is negative infinity to 0. So they do not have the same domain and range. Only is not correct. BCD. Always remember gx is the reflection of fx over y equal to x. Your inverse is always reflection of the original function over y equal to x. Remember this. Put this on your cheat sheet. It's very important. So the correct answer is D. 11. The graph shown below what's the domain and range. Domain, left to right, range, bottom to top. For domain, left to right is negative 2 to 6. We include these points because it's closed dot. I'm just gonna write it in interval notation. But you need to know if you also need to write in inequality notation if you include these 2 points. Always refer to the anchor chart we use less than n equal to greater than n equal to if we include points. For range, bottom to top, and we can see it's negative 6 to negative 1. And we include these 2 points because if we don't see closed dot, we assume it's closed dot. If we don't see open dot, we assume it's closed dot. Question 12, what's the inverse of 2x plus 8? First step, replace fx with y. So we have y equal to 2x plus 8. And we switch x and y. Y become x, x become y. Now let's solve for y. We subtract 8 on both sides to get rid of the 8. And then we have x minus 8 equal to 2y. We want to leave y alone, so we divide by 2 on both sides. So we can cancel out the 2. We have y equal to x minus 8 divided by 2. And the fourth step is to replace y with the inverse notation. And we have f inverse of x equal to x minus 8 divided by 2, which is b. That's it. Good luck on your exam.